Hey everyone, and welcome to the Hair Healer Podcast. I'm your host, Colleen the Hair Healer. I invite you to embark with me upon a journey of exchanging energy and creating conversations with my clients as we discuss our journeys through life. So come with me and let's see where today's episode takes us. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Hair Healer Podcast. It's the Hair Healer. You have to excuse my voice. I am coming off of a 2-week sinus allergy attack thing, whatever the heck it is, but it's totally clouded my third eye and it's just now finally draining and getting out of there. And I know that all of us, I know my clients and a lot of people in the salon have all had that after the holidays blues and sickness. So hopefully this episode brings everyone a lot more joy and happiness. I recorded this episode back around the Christmas time. And now, of course, weeks later, I'm getting to the beginning of it so I can tell you what this episode is about. So right now, this week in the salon, it's been a little crazy. Everyone has those salon blues. We walked in, it was kind of slow and everyone was just slow moving and like, I don't want to do my hair. I'm sick of my clothes. I'm blah, 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 blah. And then we moved into a Libra moon and it finally kind of like bounced us back. And people in the salon were feeling a little bit better. Clients wanted a little bit of a perk me up. But we still have a while to go because we are in the middle and dead of winter. But hopefully, again, this helps raise your vibe. I'm so excited about this episode with David. David is a new client. He ended up, we talk about in the episode, sort of the universe dropped him in my client lap. And I've cut his hair so far 3 times and he's come and spoke on this podcast at Capriati Salon. And this episode is so exciting. The whole episode vibe is about spiritual awakenings and awakening that purpose in you and going with life, even when you're not sure if it's aligning the exact way that you thought it should. All right. David really talks about how his spiritual path began when he was a kid with his mother, which I'm hoping my children say the same thing one day. We talk about meditation tips, but more importantly, we talk about how after college, he went out to LA to try to be a musician. And at that time, did not succeed the way he had thought he would. He thought it was done. He went to law school, then opened up a yoga studio, and then years later became a very successful musician. So on this episode, we talk about all about that, his journey, his book. Seriously, if you guys are looking like, I need a path, I need someone to point me where to go, listen to his story, listen to his path. He has so much wisdom. All right, here we go. Let's check out this episode number 7, podcast episode with David. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hair Healer Podcast. I have my amazing client, David. Say hi, David.
Hey, Colleen. Hey, everyone.
I'm so happy about David coming here. Like a fun little backstory is he's a very new client, an indefinite instant energy kind of attachment. But I was recording another episode here on a Sunday and I had walked out and you had stopped me, right? You were like, would you ask me?
Absolutely,
remember?
Yeah. We were walking down the street.
And you said, do you work here?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, yeah, but I'm doing a podcast. And then you started asking me these questions. He ended up getting a haircut.
Did my friend ever come
Your
get
friend
his
ever
haircut?
came, but...
Okay, he said he was going to.
Okay, well, now we're listening to this, so you better come.
Brad, you better come get your haircut.
Better come get it, the hair healer. And then 2 haircuts in it, and as soon as I talked to you and sat down in that chair, and we only had a half hour, you had so much knowledge, not only astrology, I never met a man who absolutely knew 10 times more of astrology than I did. And lots of other things. And I was like, I have to have you on my podcast.
Should have had the microphone while you cut my hair.
I should have. And the last one. Right. So, and when we were like practicing this, beginning doing our little thing, I was like, wait, stop talking because you have so much knowledge and I need to hear. So I want to get right into this.
The pressure's on.
The pressure is on, right?
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit. So again, during this episode, a lot of times I know years of life from my clients already by now, but this I don't. So I'm excited. So what I want to hear first is a little bit about your spiritual journey. When did it start for you? When did you notice it?
Well, I remember my first reflective moment. I remember being a kid, pretty young, and just sort of looking down at my body and asking the question, where do I come from? What is
Wow.
this? And I just have that distinct recollection of just that sense of self inquiry from a young age.
How old were you, do you think?
I would
Remember?
guess I was probably like maybe 6 or 7, something
Wow.
like that. And then when I was about 12 years old, my parents took my brother and I to be initiated in a meditation practice called TM.
I remember when you said, yeah,
Transcendental meditation. It was in the 70s, and it was kind of in vogue. It had been started by the same guru who the Beatles went to see, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And so his meditation class was being taught all over the world, and my parents thought it would be a good thing for our family to learn how to meditate. So what I do remember about that is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was a very small Indian man with long hair and a long beard, and a very high-pitched voice. And we would sit, the whole family would sit and watch videos of him talking in a thick Indian accent. And I was a kid, about meditation. And
could you focus?
Yeah, yes and no. But what I do remember is my brother and I thinking the video of him was just the funniest thing ever. And I remember us like sort of pinching each other really hard just so we didn't break up laughing. Because funny. Everybody else was so serious. But in the end, I got a mantra, and I started to meditate.
Your own personal mantra?
I got my own personal mantra.
Can you share that with us?
Well, you're not supposed to.
Okay, I wasn't sure. That's why Kenya.
I mean, I've learned so many mantras since then, and I don't even use that mantra much anymore. But
how do they go about giving you a mantra?
It's a ritual that particular system engages. And I'll tell you a little cool story, because they tell you to meditate 20 minutes a day, twice a day. And I got into it, I mean, even as a young teenager, you still have stress from school and things. Yeah. And so I just enjoyed it. I just found it was like this place I could go where the world just fell away. So I started meditating at that age, and not because I was trying to be good or trying to be disciplined. I did it because I really liked it. And it just changed my mood and helped me feel better. And like I said, it's when I went into that state and repeated my mantra, it was like the world fell away. And I remember this one really cool story. My parents were painting the house. They had hired painters to paint the house. And all the paint was stored in the garage. And it was all oil-based paint back then. And something really weird happened. It's called internal combustion. And the cans of paint set the garage on fire. Our entire garage went up in flames. Your whole garage? Yeah, which was connected to our house. And I remember my mother coming downstairs to the basement where I was meditating, yelling, "The garage is on fire, everybody get out." And I'll never forget that moment, because I felt I had so much equanimity. I heard her, I got up, but I just had a lot of, balance,
calm,
equilibrium as I left the house. And that moment just... Still to this day, that was over 40 years ago, and it's sort of
it's still right there with you.
Still right there. I remember that moment.
Wow. Yeah. So is that how you mostly really got into meditating?
That's how it
through
started.
The mantras?
Just through the mantras.
That's great, because I really have been trying to, and I do a lot of guided meditation. It's something I know I really need to really start implementing in my spiritual practice. But I'm I never actually sat there and just tried doing it with a mantra.
Well, it's ironic because, my work now as a musician is I work with mantras, but I include a musical element, which to me makes it more fun and it makes it easier for people to connect to it. If there's musical accompaniment and there's 100 people chanting the mantra together in a very musical setting, it's sort of more engaging than just closing your eyes and, chanting Om, Om, which is wonderful. But for some people, that's challenging.
That's challenging.
So it's just funny that, I don't know, 30 years after learning to meditate with a mantra, that my profession became, chanting mantras with people.
Which is cool. Tell us a little bit about you. When he first sat in my chair and he started telling me what he did and is how he is a musician, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize there was like really cool people like this around here,
Right.
And I'm finding more and more in this community. There's a few, but like when I moved out here, more of like-minded people like me, and I was like, wow. So talk about your career.
Mm-hmm.
It's very fascinating.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of the context about how I came into it, because I think I always enjoy sharing this story. Mostly because my life has been such an unusual, surprising manifestation. And so I love sharing it for the sake of letting people know that you never know where life's going to go. I'm going to turn 56 in a couple of weeks, and it's been an incredible journey. But so I'm just going to give you the short version of the arc of my life.
Yeah.
So after I went to college, I moved to Los Angeles to be a songwriter and a singer and a performer.
What kind of songwriter, singer, performer?
Back then, I was just like a rock pop kind of singer songwriter.
Long hair, short hair?
Medium hair back then. And I went. Let's see. That was. I took a year after college and I bartended here in this area.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and then I moved to Los Angeles, and that was in 1987.
Wow.
And I did that for a couple of years and had some real tastes of possibilities of getting signed to a record deal, but it just didn't happen at that time. And it was disappointing, but I was also kind of disenchanted by it at that point. And I figured that I wanted to do something else with my life. So I applied to law school in New York.
Really?
Yeah, I applied to law school in New York City.
What is that?
And in 1990, I enrolled in law school in New York, in the West Village. And I graduated law school in 1992. I took the bar exam in August of 1992, and I opened a yoga center 2 weeks later.
Wait.
I know. That's why I was like, woo. Yeah.
Say that one more time.
So what happened was I started law school in 1990. During law school, I had already been meditating and practicing yoga, but I met a yoga teacher who was visiting New York City. He was from Maui, and he deeply inspired me to the point where those years in law school where I was either studying or I was practicing yoga, and at times practicing like 4 hours of yoga a day. I was
4 hours of yoga a day.
Similar to the meditation.
Interesting.
It wasn't because I should do this. I just at that time, I just couldn't get enough yoga. So I would start to practice and then just would practice for hours. And so during law school, I just got completely impassioned by yoga. And so when I because it's just I'm a Capricorn, right? It's my personality. I'm like, I started law school, I'm going to finish law school, So I finished law school. And also at that time, this was, I graduated in 1992. Now in Philadelphia, there are hundreds of yoga centers, but back in 92, there really weren't any.
There wasn't any?
There weren't any. I mean, there was somebody teaching in the basement of a New Age bookstore on South Street. It's called Garland of Letters. There was a few people teaching out of their homes. But the notion of a center devoted to yoga, I had learned about that because I lived in New York City and there were yoga centers there, but Philly hadn't caught on yet.
So you opened it in Philly?
So I opened the yoga center in Manayunk in 1992.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my feeling was I love yoga so much, but I didn't have a model. There weren't yoga centers. So I figured this would be really something fun to do. I'll do it for a year or two, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll get a law job and move on with my life. And now, 27 years later, the yoga center is still going. I don't own it or manage it anymore.
How long did you own it for?
I owned it for about 25 years.
Well, a long time. So a while. You've pretty much had it most of its life so far.
Most of its life. But I really ran it and taught there for maybe... I owned it for 25 years, but I managed it for about 10 and taught there for maybe around 15, because then my music career kicked in and then that changed everything.
That was going to be the next question. Yeah. When did you know it was time to go to a new path?
I got inspired with my music. I was exposed to some amazing chanters who were Western and who were bridging this gap between Western music, like taking like a sort of a Western rock folk sound and merging it with Eastern Indian Sanskrit mantras.
Yeah.
There were just a few people back then who were doing that. And because I would invite people to come to my yoga center. So this one guy named Krishna Das had recorded this great album, and it was sort of pop rock, but it had African rhythms, but it was all chanting. It was all Sanskrit chanting.
Wow.
And I heard that. And so I invited him to come to my yoga center.
Yeah.
And then started to learn from him, and then found out about other people. And I started to get re-inspired with my music in kind of this new way.
Had you played throughout those years or not as much?
A little bit, but once I got into teaching yoga, that really felt like what I was born to do. So I had let my music, I had sort of, that was then, this is now. But there was like a reawakening, and I started playing a harmonium, which is an Indian instrument, and an ektar, and then started picking up my guitar again. And I got inspired to record an album back in 2002, which was my first album.
Wow.
But then my second album, I met this record producer through a friend in New York City who had this really sort of like a pop producer, but he had a real groove-oriented sensibility about him. And so I went to New York City and recorded my second album with him, and people really took to it. And how it sort of broke open for me with my music was this woman had come. I started just offering, sort of musical chant sessions in Philadelphia, but then I branched out and I did one or two in like New Jersey and New York, and then I went down to DC, and this woman had come. She came to hear me play in DC. And do you listen to NPR much?
Yeah, I sometimes, yeah. Okay,
because back then I didn't listen to it at all. I listen to it a lot now. Yeah. I enjoy it. But a woman called me, and she said she had been, she first emailed me, and then we talked on the phone. She said she had been at my concert in DC, and she said she reviewed albums for this show on NPR called All Things Considered. And I didn't know what show that was, so I was very nonchalant. She said, "Can I review your album? Can we set up an interview?" I said, "Sure." I didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
We did the interview, and then it came out on All Things Considered and
on NPR.
And the next thing I know, people are calling me from around the country saying,
out of the
blue, was that you, David Newman? We know you have a history of music. But then the big thing that happened was the morning after the review came out, I went to my website. I had created a music website as my second album, as I mentioned. There were like 1,000 orders for my CD. And so suddenly,
major abundance.
Yeah, it was just, and from there, everything just
took off.
12 albums later. But it's been, as for somebody who's been really passionate about music, like when that happened, when the music came back, the review happened, the invitations came, I found amazing musicians. It all was just such a gift of grace, because I didn't, I do believe in manifestation, but I don't always know that it's the conscious mind that's doing the creating.
Oh, interesting.
And so meaning that there was this inner quiet prayer that God answered without me saying, I want to be a musician. I want to tour all over the world. I want to make albums. I was very content being a yoga teacher. And so this just sort of, came back into my life, something that I had tried to do when I was like 22.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, at the age of 40, I became a gypsy and started, touring all over the world and making music.
So how long had you been, because I think about this for myself, had you put into the work, not when you were younger, but the second time around, had you really put into your work of your albums and really started to get more serious? Did that review happen? That where everything came out of the blue? A year, 6 months?
Well, my first album was 2002, and my second album I recorded in 2005, and then All Things Considered, I think, was 2005, right after the album came out.
Then, so you put you put a lot of work in between those couple of years.
A lot of love into those albums, a lot of love. I mean, when I made my first album, it was I couldn't even fathom and believe that there I was making music and recording with great musicians, and I've worked with, the most amazing musicians, just people who are just incredible. I mean, I've been so blessed musically to have my music uplifted by great musicians and producers and opportunities. I got signed to a major record label.
Wow.
It's just, yeah.
Did you ever want to give up from the time you started that first album to the second album when you started to really take off those couple years?
Did I want to give up? Not really. There was just, I was on a wave.
You just knew.
Point.
Okay.
I was on a wave. It was, the universe, it's like a feedback mechanism. It's sort of, you're just in this dance, and suddenly there was this energy, and I was elated, grateful, and absolutely surprised that music came back into my life with a bang in that way. But of course, when I was younger, I mean, there's always a spiritual component to my music, but now my music it's not religious, but it's uplifting and spiritual in nature. That's just what I do is I find music to be an amazing vehicle to, touch people's spirit with.
How has it evolved from that first album to now, where you are to now?
Yeah, I think as a musician, definitely as a singer, my instrument, I have a much better feel with my instrument, and sort of, how can I say, like it's more connected to my soul.
Yeah.
It's not like here's me and here's my voice. It's just all one now. So when I sing, I really pour myself very organically into it. I've traveled all over the world and sang so many concerts and chanted with so many people that it's just, opened my heart. It's opened my voice, all those beautiful connections. And I think what's, I would say, most interesting, even when the music came back to me, I think there was still a sense of identifying with the role of being a singer and a musician. And now there's just no ego. I don't, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to say this, but I'm not, what's the word? I'm not identified with, I can't think of the word. I'm not defined by my music, meaning that
you don't identify.
I don't identify with. So if I never, it's a weird thing to say, but if I never sang another concert again, it wouldn't matter to me.
When did that happen?
It just shifted into that. But my point is that because I'm so not attached to it, when I do it, I'm just in it,
like in the moment with it.
I'm just in the moment with it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's been one of the really interesting things about the spiritual path, that when I was younger, I thought that detachment led you to somehow be separate from the experience. But when you're detached, it actually breeds more passion, which is something that has been very surprising to me, because you're not bringing a story to it. You're there, you're in the moment, and you don't have an idea of who you think you should be doing it or how it should look or what it should be. You're just surrendered to what it is. And so to me, that's the ultimate creative passion, is when you're just a channel for whatever that creative energy is.
Wow. I was just thinking the other day, and I, work a lot. We've talked about that with like different manifestations, and kind of, you just said something that made me think about that. But how do we, and maybe you can help me with this. I was thinking, how do we manifest without putting expectations, right? And I guess I was thinking you put a clear decision, intention into the universe and just let go of all outcomes. Like how, we're taught in a way to manifest. And this is like you said, we want this, I want this, and it's going to be this. But yet we're also taught, if we want to be happy, not to have expectations.
Yeah. That's a beautiful inquiry. And
it's been on my mind all week.
I've thought about that and experienced that and been in relationship to that question. And sort of, this is what I would have to say about that. In a simple phrase, stay close to the feeling.
I like that.
So your soul, your essence, has a natural inclination, a natural impulse to create. And when you're aligned with that, there's a certain kinesthetic satisfaction. You just feel, again, like the universe is moving through you.
Yes.
And so that's a feeling, but the form of that is always changing. Yeah, like maybe it was for me, it was, teaching yoga, and then it became music, and then it's not,
What's
it
it now?
changes. Right now, I would say my greatest, well, one of them is being a father,
Yeah.
and you can relate to that.
Yeah.
And I think it's simultaneous. I'm much more at ease with just being present in the moment. And so, and my inquiry now is my whole life, it's kind of been that creative fire that's driven me. And now there's a sort of surrendered presence. And my inquiry now is, what will that creative fire look like in terms of the next chapter?
Next chapter.
Or does it just feel different now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like since knowing you, your energy does have this very peace. It almost seems to me like when you talk and when we've talked, it almost feels like you've done so many great things in your life. And now you're just sort of like, I'm just living.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else. I don't need to do my
Sure.
relationship with the daughter and just enjoying life. And it seems like you're like living.
Absolutely. And I feel like I'm just open. Like if there was something that came into my life that really engaged my ambitions or my drive or my fire, I would unequivocally say yes, because who doesn't want to be on fire? Like when my music career was, we talked about the first few albums, I was just being moved.
Wow.
And so who doesn't want to experience that? That's a lovely feeling. But I call it like how do I say this? Being preference-less.
Preference-less.
So, right. Whatever the universe knows better than us. So, just being open to not saying, your preference I think as human beings, maybe we all have preferences.
Yeah.
I would like this over this over this,
yes.
But not being attached to those preferences. Sort of circle back to your question. I would say stay close to the feeling, but don't be attached to the form. In the same way, let's say you're looking for a relationship and you're fixated that the person needs to be 5 foot this and have dark hair and have blue eyes and and all of a sudden this wonderful person comes into your life, who looks totally different than your ideal, but yet is there to completely, meet you and love you. And so if you're too fixated on how you think it should look, then often you can't receive what the universe is trying to give you. So that's why I say stay close to the feeling and ask yourself, for me, I teach people about staying connected to your heart. Ask yourself what your heart is wanting in any given situation. And even abundance, not getting too, fixated on, well, abundance comes in so many different forms.
So many different ways.
If sort of money is a form of abundance, but spiritual abundance, emotional abundance, whatever. There's just so many different expressions of that. And what I find is if you just stay open and stay close to the feeling, the universe gives you exactly what you need.
It does. And stay close and just put that kind of pure intention.
That pure intention.
That pure.
Yeah, just to let life just meet your soul.
Wow.
Just let life meet your soul.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like I have this little puppy,
Yeah.
And I bounce between completely relating to her as just this soulmate.
Aw, yeah.
But then I also have to remind myself, that she's a dog and she needs to, do doggy things, and so it's kind of like that, you're constantly dancing between the purity of just your soul's connection and then what is the form?
What is the form?
And you have, and I think it's just being attentive.
Being attentive and being to what is in front of you, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a dance. You're dancing with, life or universe or spirit or, whatever word works.
Now, do you think that you have, right, we all have shadow selves, talk about light selves, shadow selves. Do you feel like now as you've had, because what I like about you is you've had such a long, which I feel like my voice, I hope will say one day, like life being introduced to spirituality and self-awareness and like from the time you're young, like, do you feel like, you always have parts to yourself that are shadow self, but do you feel like you've worked through a lot of that inner child healing, darker stuff?
I don't think it ever ends. I definitely think it becomes more nuanced, meaning so like suppose you have a violent tendency and, And then that violent tendency is just to want to, like kill somebody.
Yeah.
And then it goes from that to just thinking about killing somebody.
Yeah.
And then it goes from that to just, sort of just feeling the impulse and not even necessarily. So it just gets more nuanced. And I think we're all dealing, to the degree that we're embodied. I don't love the word ego, maybe like a conditioned self.
Why don't you like ego?
I don't know. It's just thrown around so much. And I also think
I think it has such a negative, but it's not necessarily so negative.
No, I think it has a positive functionality. I mean, as unbounded consciousness, we couldn't, the ego is telling me right now that you and I are separate.
Yeah.
That there is something known as time. And without that, I wouldn't have been here at the right time. Without that, we couldn't be in dialogue. So the ego is like a focal point. It's a functionality that says, I am separate.
Yeah.
And so the beauty is not being bound by that, that fiction, but it's in operation. So you have to respect it.
You have to respect it.
So that's why I don't love the word ego. But I think there is a conditioned sense of self that does flow from the ego. So the idea of being a separative self, you're born, you have a gender, you have nationality, you have an age, you have a religion, you have a whole set of familial patterns that evolve. And so we're all in relationship to that, and seeing how that shows up, these sort of patterns that are in our genetics, that are in Sanskrit, in yoga, they're called samskaras, and they're basically habitual patterns that in the yogic teachings say we actually come to this birth. We're still working it out. They didn't just start with birth. Yeah. So I think
lifetimes and lifetimes.
Yeah. So I think self-inquiry and seeing what your impact is on your environment, how you're relating to other people. I always find that when it comes to kindness, love, compassion, forgiveness, understanding, you never get to the point where I've reached the pinnacle of compassion, or I've reached the pinnacle of unconditional love or forgiveness. And we're all, a work in progress, all of us, I mean, some people may be a little further along than others. That's possible, but,
do you think when we do get there, do we go to nirvana? Or is our soul done? What do you think? I'd love to hear what people's thoughts are on their own.
Yeah. Well, I always preface that answer, obviously that it's all speculation.
It's all speculation,
and I typically don't necessarily go there because I find the present moment offers so much that I don't. But if I had to,
thank you for me. Thank you. It's like, but if you had to,
I would say I would subscribe. Well, first of all, I subscribe to the I Don't Know Anything Society. Yes. That's the first society.
We all know nothing.
That I'm a part of. But if I was to speculate based upon my experience in this life, how's that?
Yes. Yeah. In this life.
That it's infinitely unfolding.
Yeah.
That consciousness is just always unfolding or expanding, and then maybe starting a new cycle from a deeper level. And my experience and my sense is that it's not a beginning and an end. It's all just
circle.
Or an infinity, or it's just evolving. And I can't imagine that you come to this end place,
I know.
Like in 2013, I had this spiritual awakening, which felt like the end of something.
Wow.
But then it gave birth to the beginning of something.
Which is beautiful.
Well, yeah, exactly. But when the shift happened, I felt like I felt like I had completed my journey.
Yeah.
But then something new revealed itself, like a different level, a different layer of consciousness. I wrote a book about that awakening.
What was your book called?
It's called The Time-Bound Traveler.
The Time-Bound
How
Traveler.
My journey as a seeker came to an end.
Wait, so talk about that. How did that come about?
In 2010, I had a spontaneous awakening where I perceived.
Wait, so a decade ago, the beginning.
A decade ago.
We're ending this decade. So we're talking about this and the decade's almost over.
That's right. Wow, it feels like a year ago.
See, so what happened?
That's amazing. In a moment in time, I had perceived reality with no me in the middle, like pure perception with no personal point of view, just awareness. And I had other spiritual awakenings over time, but this one was it was interesting. It was hard to process. It was actually, rather than a lot of other spiritual expansions that I had had on my journey, which were joyful and blissful and wonderful, this was more terrifying than that.
It was terrifying.
It was terrifying, yeah.
How long did that terrifying feeling last?
It took me 3 years to process it.
Was it something you'd think about every day?
For 3 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know when you finally processed it?
Yeah.
Or was it something you look back and you're like, oh, I haven't thought about
I
that?
know the exact moment at all.
What was the moment?
It just fell away.
Wow.
It just fell away. So it was like this. It's hard to put these things in words, but it was all of a sudden there was perception. We're all perceiving reality. And typically we're perceiving it from a David. From a
colleague. The hair healer.
And there was just this unequivocal moment of just awareness. It gave rise to kind of everything in the world of form seemed fundamentally illusory. In Sanskrit, they call it Maya.
Maya?
This is all like a dream.
Yeah.
And so because of, it just took me down to my knees. I mean, I just felt like I was living in this kind of, non-reality.
Did you get depressed?
Not depressed so much. It was more terrifying. And then my spiritual practice kind of said, okay, you need to open to the next level.
Oh.
It's not like, because my natural inclination was to kind of close up around it. But because I had meditated and practiced for so long.
Aren't you a rising Cancer or Cancer moon?
Sagittarius, Cancer moon.
Cancer moon. That reminded me of your Cancer moon right there. I'm sorry. When you said
closing up around it.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to resist it because, it's like almost like if somebody said to you, like, you don't exist, so you hear like something like it's all one, right?
Yeah.
When you have a vision of that, for it to be all one, it means that you and I don't exist as separate entities if it's all one. And so I didn't just have a conceptual perspective on that, like the reality of that revealed itself to me. And so it was beautiful, but you
didn't even ask for it to reveal itself.
I did not ask for it.
Wow.
It just came out. There's a beauty in that, but the part of me that still needed to maintain my own separative identity, like kicked and screamed and contracted and got really scared. And so I processed that for 3 years, and I was taken on the most amazing journey. And I
in those 3 years,
and I wrote about that journey
in the book.
In the book, I documented that entire journey. And then,
tell us the book again.
The Time-Bound Traveler.
The Time-Bound Traveler.
Yeah, time-bound is all one word. 3 years later, I went out to dinner. I was married at the time with my wife and her mother.
Where'd you guys go to eat?
We were at Chestnut Hill in Philadelphia,
Nice.
Just walking down the street, and like that, completely out of the blue, what started 3 years ago just came to an end. And all of a sudden,
did you stop? Like almost like
it was like my separative mind was like checkmated. I was just like looking for myself, and I was like, what, and it wasn't there. It was like everything was just connected. Everything was just exactly as it is in the moment. There was nothing I had to change or do or seek or go or get. Nothing. It was like quicksilver, like that awareness, that reality, that awareness filled in the space of my consciousness, so that it wasn't as if, it had been like this separative reality and then it all opened up. It was like, it always was this.
It was always this.
It was always this, because in that moment, there was no time, there was no duality, there was no separation, there was nothing needed of me. I was just being as the universe in oneness.
You were one.
And it was totally mundane.
I feel like my mind is blown.
My mind was blown. And in that,
so you wrote the book after?
I wrote the book after that.
Did you know right when you had that moment, like, I have to write about this journey?
No. And I'll tell you, that the book, as a musician, I mean, we all hear about channeling creativity. And as a musician, there were times and are times where I often feel completely effortless. But this book was because I'm a composer, I'm a musical, I'm not an author. I don't want to say I'm not an author, but whereas I can just write a song, just sit and write takes a certain level of effort and concentration for me.
My ADD, I mean, I write these posts and I can't tell, I just sometimes sit there for like, it feels like an hour just to get it out there.
Exactly. And I would just like, I write things and then I have to carve it out and then like delete it. And so, this awakening.
How long did it take to write it?
Well, that's what I want to share. So this awakening happened and there was no inclination to write about it. I was just really like, the thing that was amazing was all of a sudden I was totally, what I had been so afraid of, all of a sudden was so self-evident and beautiful. So, oh, my natural state. This is it. This is who I am. And so there was no rub. There was no fighting. It was just big, like infinite exhale. So I didn't think about writing a book. And I'd seen this psychic years ago, and she said, "There's a book inside of you." And I said, "Oh, really? That's interesting." Because So I sat down on the sofa with my computer on my lap. And all of a sudden, one morning, I just got an impulse that I'm just going to write down my story. And I started writing. And that was on a Monday morning, except for eating and very little sleep. I wrote the book for Monday morning. That Friday night, that Saturday night, I was playing in New York City until that. It was actually from Monday morning till Saturday morning. I didn't stop, except for very minimal sleep and to eat. And I wrote the entire book in that week.
Wow. It was just your book became like meth.
It was. It was like somebody turned on a faucet and it
just didn't stop. Like something came, like the universe came through you.
It was amazing. And then on that Saturday.
How many pages?
It's a small book. Yeah. I mean, and the
still a lot to write though.
And the amazing thing was I literally the next week, because I had this publisher that I knew about because I really liked the books they published. They're called Non-Duality Press. They were bought by New Harbinger, which is a bigger publisher. And I emailed them the next week and they picked up the book.
They did?
Yeah. And they gave me an editor. And within, I don't know how many months, the book was published. Just like into the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, as you speak, and again, what I've heard is you do, like your energy, when I see your energy, you do have such like almost a mastery of detachment.
Mm-hmm.
And detachment, and like these things just are, and I think that is the key, like you said, a way, like what will flow to you will flow, but your detachment, I feel like, is what actually makes it all come.
Right. I'm not telling the universe,
what that's what I'm learning right now. I'm really trying to learn that for myself.
It's a dance because, the person has ideas and has a timetable. And for me, I think if you ask like what I'm working on, it's something I've been working on. And that is transforming patience from something that's like arduous and difficult and something that's just like, it just comes in its own time.
It just comes in its own time.
Being at ease with that divine timing.
Do you take, and it seems like you're able to, which is again, like conscious parenting, do you take that into your relationship with your daughter?
Yeah, organically, just by being myself and being as authentic as I can, true to myself and letting that, I'm very, very grateful that, she's 8 now. So I was 47 when she was born.
That's right.
So I feel really grateful that I'm this person, and her mother's extraordinary. So
he doesn't look like he's in his 50s at all.
And I got a great haircut too.
Amazing haircut.
Well, they'll see my website if they go. They'll see that I had long hair, but I don't anymore.
No, it's shorter. It's a new energy, a new hair energy.
Yeah, exactly. And this was part of that too. I think I told you I had a dream.
Tell them. Yeah, tell them.
I had long hair for 20 years.
20 years, that's
20
right.
years. And I was identified with my look as a musician and people were attached to it. And I had a dream that somebody, what do you call these things? Shears?
The clippers.
Clippers. I had a dream that somebody was just like clipping my hair and I woke up the next morning. And of course you don't act on all your dreams.
No, but you did.
But this one.
You're rising Sagittarius.
Yeah. I woke up the next day and I thought, okay, I'm going to get my hair cut.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story because I came to you for my second haircut.
Yeah, that was the first. I was the second one, but the guy before me had cut it all off, right?
He cut it all off. I was having lunch the day after the dream with my daughter.
Yeah.
And it was a Mexican restaurant in Ardmore in Suburban Square, and I liked the waiter's haircut. So I just said, "Where'd you get your haircut?"
Yeah.
He said, "Well, I got it cut at the Dominican barber shop in Norristown."
Yeah.
And
I actually think I know some people that go there. To
Do
that
you?
barbershop. Yes, because they'll tag it on Facebook.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What was the guy's name? Super sweet guy.
Yeah.
And my daughter and I got in the car and went to the Dominican barbershop, and Ivan, that was the guy's name. And we sat for 45 minutes. And
to wait to get a haircut?
That's
what I love about barbershops, which I wish I want to start implementing in salons, because sometimes people can be impatient, because in barbershops, you got to wait. Doesn't matter. You got to wait.
He was out to lunch, Ivan. And then he came back and we're sitting there and he just sat and ate his lunch for like 20 minutes. And like every 5 minutes I looked at my daughter, Tulsi, and she was egging me on.
Was she? What would she say?
She would say, come on, Dad, let's do it. And I'd say, because we're all of a sudden in the middle of this barbershop. I didn't know anybody. They weren't speaking English.
And you had long hair, which a lot of people would not go do, is go get long hair and get it cut off at a barbershop.
I know. And I had long hair. And again, this was one of those moments where it was like,
giving it up.
There I was, in this barbershop getting my hair cut off. And it was liberating. And it's funny to watch. Some people say, wow, you look great. And other people go, I miss your hair. But no, when I got it cut off, it was clear. I knew. Yeah, I was like, why did I wait so long?
When I grow my hair out and then I cut it off, and I always am like, cut it. I've had my hair short every length and I love it. I don't freak out. If I'm ready to get it cut, take it off.
I think so, yeah. I can't imagine for me now, I had long hair for so long.
So you never grow it back out again?
Right. I mean, you never say never, but I mean, I don't know that, I said to him, I said to a friend, like, if I ever have like really long hair and I just look like an old guy trying to be young, like, tell me to cut my hair.
Tell me.
But I think I was, proactive in doing that, So,
well, I think it looks good with the longer on the top, closer on the sides.
Somebody told me I look like Bruce Springsteen the other day.
Bruce Springsteen.
Right. It's funny. I'll take that.
Better. I'm not a Bruce Springsteen fan.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So better.
A similar haircut.
And the beard. Do you always have the beard?
Yeah. I cut it off after I got my hair cut. I shaved off my beard, and it just feels right to me to have a beard. I don't know why. I mean, maybe that's another attachment.
It's your ego. It's identifying. What does Eckhart Tolle say? Ego identifying with anything outside of self.
Yeah. Or it may just be that, a beard just feels right for me. Right. So
men either love it or they don't love it.
Yeah, I enjoy having a beard.
It looks good. Yeah. I think it looks good. So how do you think... we'll finish up here. This is a random question, and then I ask a bunch of 3 ending questions. But
sure.
How do you think moving into 2020, people in a couple weeks, and see how much we've progressed since 2010 in like our spiritual journey and as a collective and in society and as gender? I mean, 10 years ago, people weren't just like ever coming out as like gender fluid, transgender, none of that, or at least not as nationally as they have over the 10 years. Like, do you see us hopefully then like raising our consciousness in the next 10 years, the next decade, and you'll see much more of people understanding and embodying that we're a soul, we're energy, we're presence, we're not like how we dress, what we drive, you know what I mean? Like, do you see that moving that way?
I do, and I love that. I love all the gender fluidity because in the end, we are souls.
We're souls,
and you have the creative capacity to choose and create, any expression in the world of form that you wish. And, you can change it at any time. I mean, everybody's free to express themselves. And I love that fluidity because in the end, if you believe in reincarnation, who knows? I'm a man now. I may have been a woman, 500 times. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I don't sense that the soul necessarily has a gender.
It doesn't.
Yeah. So, but I think it's soup right now because there's this sort of, movement toward consciousness and toward complete self-expression. And then there's this sort of slap back by the old patriarchal, guard that's, no, that's not reality and this is reality. And, we see that projected in our politics and in our religion. So I think it's a bit of a soup right now and it's working itself out. And I think it will continue to do that.
You think when we're on the Hair Healer podcast talking in 10 more years at the end of this, be like, do you remember that? You know what I mean? When we look at it, everyone is, I would love a world where people just were what they want. Men were women, women were whatever.
Absolutely.
And I think too, we're in a society where women I could walk out every day, no one think a word if I wore men's sweatpants with men's shoes and a men's shirt. But I think if men do that, it's a whole other thing. Do you know what I mean? It's much more. And I love to see that like kind of break down.
it will, and and I think people are just afraid of change. It's just the way
People
it
hate
is.
change.
Yeah, it's
It's
scary.
inevitable.
It's scary. For me, what I have, in terms of the zeitgeist and society, my greatest pushback is for anybody or any organization, social, religious, political organization that thinks they have a monopoly on how people should be, and the desire to impose that on other people. So freedom of self-expression. Each being having the full freedom to be able to listen to their soul's guidance. And
don't you think people would be so much happier?
oh, I know they would be.
Yeah,
I know they would be.
so many people are just so repressed and just
very much so.
I mean,
but that's all societal, conditioning.
Bullshit.
And yeah, it is. And I think that's all of us. That's our job, no matter whether it's the work you do or it's the work I do. It's just like tag, you're it. Just sharing what you found. I call it an invitation. I never, when I teach, I don't want to impose what's worked for me.
Yeah.
But if I can share my inspiration in a way that's an invitation for somebody else to just go deeper within themselves, that's always my intention and motivation, because people find it in their own way.
They do.
And I, in my work, what I love sharing is that, there is no one way to connect to spirituality or to your notion of God. Everybody should be free to feel that and find that in their own unique way.
I agree. And I just still don't get why people get so mad.
Fear.
It is fear of change and not know anything different.
Because if you do it that way, then it challenges my way. And, I've learned to think that my way is the way. And so now what do I do with that? So, So
let people live. On the hair healer, let them effing live.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And mind your business.
Be free to be themselves.
Be free to be themselves. And I think most of the time when people have a problem with that, probably because they wish deep down they could be free with themselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right? This has been good. So I end this every interview with these 3 questions. Take your time. I leave enough time, so you don't have to feel rushed. I leave enough time to answer them. But they're good. They're life questions.
They're not one-word answers?
No. Okay. You could. Or maybe yes or no.
All right.
Okay. So what is one piece of advice you would tell your younger self? Inner David.
One piece of advice I would tell my younger self. Ooh. Relax.
Wow. Why was your Capricorn really high when you were young?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, relax and trust. Trust. Just trust the process.
Trust the process.
Yeah.
That's a good reminder.
And I think there's one other thing I would tell my younger self, and that is, you're doing great.
I like that.
Yeah, you're doing fine.
Yeah. You're doing just fine.
You're exactly where you need to be right now.
Yeah.
My 25-year-old self couldn't be my 55-year-old self. It wouldn't be right.
Yeah.
It's like I can't expect my 8-year-old daughter, to be me.
Yeah.
She's herself.
She's herself.
Yeah.
Wow. I like that. So the next one is, what advice which you've given us so much advice, I can't wait to go home and listen and write everything down. What advice do you have for our listening audience right now?
Choose love over fear.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It's short but powerful.
Yeah.
Choose love. What happens when you choose love over fear?
Life unfolds in beautiful ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Final question.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Final answer. What's the best advice someone has ever given you?
Boy, there's been so much.
Yeah, you've had so many wise teachers.
Yeah. Yeah. Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah, do it your way. Do whatever you pursue, do it in a way that's authentic. That's been demonstrated to me by great teachers, and all the great teachers that I've had that I consider great teachers, their goal was always to make themselves obsolete. And, that's the greatest advice that I've been given is, be true to thyself. And when a teacher would say to me, whatever you're looking for is already inside you. You don't have to find it.
Wow.
That quote, I'm sort of compiling what different teachers had said rather than like one piece of advice, but I love that quote. This, says the very thing that you're looking for is that which is looking. There's there's no difference between what's looking and what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, my teachers were great in showing me that there really is nothing to achieve or to attain, because everything that you're looking for
is right inside.
Is already inside.
Just like multiple layers.
Yeah.
That you have to.
Exactly. But when you're trying to find it out there, it's like, it's kind of like a bee that has like, a nectar on its little, what are they like?
The little
antler, not
the
antlers,
antler,
but,
the cats have the whiskers.
Whisker.
Is it whisker?
Whisker, and then looking everywhere and not being able to access it, but not realizing that it's like
that it's
part
right.
of them, Yeah.
Wow.
The illusion of trying to find it out there.
I think as a whole, I know from my own journey so far, I've been able to start to work through that as I've gotten through like hard time, right? There's spiritual hard times, there's, spiritual growth opportunities. And then each one I go through, can I start to break through that illusion?
That's what it's here for.
That's what it's here for, right?
There is a distinction, Colleen, between appreciation of the external world as a means, I call it, of, it's sort of, you look out into the world and your manifestation becomes a celebration of what's inside of you. It's like all of a sudden, that which is you is projecting itself outward into this life, and it gets reflected back to you. But so if it's coming from within, it takes on this magical quality, as opposed to trying to sort of get it out there and bring it in. It always has a kind of feeling of wrongness about it, because you can never get satiated.
Wow.
And it's like, there's no satisfaction in trying to find that fulfillment outside.
Well, it's funny. I notice myself, and especially as I become more in tune with how I work and what I do and how I think, is the more, like, for instance, as I'm trying to build, because I want this to be a major hit, right? And I've also accepted that it's not, at least I'm putting it out there, and if it's not, it'll lead me to something else, in one way. And I'm like, okay, so if I make it to this many followers or this many people, and then I'll be like, and then that's not enough. And I remember thinking to myself, and so I'm trying to catch myself being like, Kai, remember when you be grateful, remember when however long ago you wish you would have been at this status. And then it's like, it's interesting. And I think that's what leads to people that have no awareness of it. So they're just constantly chasing, not happy, and constantly chasing.
We live in a world of numbers now.
Yes, numbers.
So that really imprints us. And we do have to really check ourselves, because you can get really attached to being validated out there by how many followers or likes or what have you. And it's, it's a trap.
You got to check in. I know with myself, especially really trying to more take off again and get this notice, is if I start to feel bad about something, like something stupid, like, but you can't help how your emotions think or your mind. If it'd be like, oh, this thing I thought should have had a bunch of likes didn't. And if I start to feel like negative feeling from that, like, I'm like, Colleen, take a step back. This isn't good. You got to catch yourself, because that's going to lead to low self-worth and, this cycle. And like, I think more people need to have awareness of that.
I think you said it perfect. Take a step back and, don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself, because there is a natural human inclination to want to be accepted and revered.
Yes.
I would say, as a musical career, have I achieved everything that I wanted to, in my younger years? No. But I focus on being grateful for what the universe has given me.
Yeah.
And I also, when I was younger, I wanted to be famous. And I feel like, whatever fame I got has been given to me in the mode of being of service to others. And I feel like I got just enough,
You're
because
like the third, that I've heard that the third, like that's what I feel like should be channeled to me. You're the third person, but you're the first person that said that directly to me. I'm sorry. That's what I'm trying to say, where I've heard it in two other ways while listening to something and it like caught my ear. Like abundance came through giving of service.
Yeah.
And then you just said that. And in fact, this whole interview, I feel like you have given, has been so many things I've been wondering in my own spirit and my own as I move forward. And you just reminded me, detach. You just kept saying so many things that I had been thinking this entire week.
Oh, good.
So not only did you come into my life for a reason, right? And to get, besides getting a fabulous haircut, and besides this, we pick an interview date like 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you end up saying everything that I need to hear perfectly in my life.
Oh, good.
And that's how the universe works, right?
I'm so glad.
Yeah, this has been an amazing interview. So tell everyone where they can find you, your website, your Instagram, anything, if they want to check out your music.
They can find me in the ethers. I'm at my best when I'm sleeping at night. I tend to get around. But in this actual world, David Newman, Newman, music.com. And and that leads to Facebook and Instagram and Spotify.
And do you do local Philly shows or all over?
I will be playing at the World Cafe Live on in Philadelphia on March 21st.
Remind me.
I'm going to be doing an Equinox concert. I will. Yeah.
Remind me. I would love to go.
Yeah.
Remind me like a month ahead.
I will. Yeah, I'll keep in touch for sure.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. And thank you for
my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Colleen.
Of course. And thank you everyone for listening to the Hair Healer podcast again. If you have any questions, and David, you'll probably be back on. My plan is to see how this evolves.
Well, I'm right around. I literally walked. I actually drove because it's so cold, but I'm like a 7-minute walk from here. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Right around the corner.
So if you guys have anything you want me to ask, if you forget how to reach out to him or anything like that, please email me at just email me at thehairhealer1111@yahoo.com. And please like and share this with your friends, subscribe, and you can find me on Instagram at thehairhealer1111.com. I hope everyone has a fabulous week and this finds you in a good mindset. And thank you for listening.